Welcome, one and all, to the SpareTalk News Network. Your host, Rod Weaver, will be up momentarily as he gets ready for his one-on-one interactive podcast to kick things off. So, sit back and enjoy. And now, on with the show.
Welcome back, everyone, to DC Sports Rewind. Today we're taking a deep dive into an era that honestly shaped so much of our sports landscape, particularly here in Washington, D.C. And I'm thrilled to have back with us my good friend, an absolute encyclopedia of old school sports, especially bowling, Howard. Howard, great to have you back.
Rod, it's always a pleasure, man. You know, it's funny how much things have changed, and yet some of those core memories, they just stick with you. Especially from the DC of the 60s.
Absolutely, and we're going to touch on a legend in a bit. But first, let's set the scene. For folks who weren't around and maybe grew up outside the area, DC in the 40s and 50s was really a duck pin town, right? But the 60s started to see that shift.
Oh, entirely. I mean, you'd walk into an alley back then and it was primarily duck pins. Everyone knew duck pins. It was, I don't know, almost a community thing. But by the time the 60s rolled around, 10-pins started making a serious push. Suddenly you had alleys adding 10-pin lanes, or new places opening with both. It was a real transition.
And the equipment, too. I remember the big change was in the bowling balls themselves for 10 pins. We were still largely in that rubber and early plastic era, which, played a role in how the game was evolving.
Definitely. Those rubber balls, they had a very different reaction on the lane compared to what we see today. And the plastic, it was a step up, but nothing like the reactive resin we have now. You really had to earn your strikes back then, you know what I mean? No forgiving hooks from the ball itself. And what's interesting is while 10 pins was getting new tech, duck pin scoring was actually on a steady incline. By the mid-70s, scores were substantially higher than in the 60s because bowlers were just getting better, more consistent.
It's wild to think about that progression. And DC was such a unique hotbed for bowling because of that dual existence. You could find a duck pin league, a 10-pin league, or sometimes even both in the same center. It made the city just ideal for anyone who was sports-minded, right? You could bowl, or you could catch a pro game.
Absolutely. It was a great time to be a sports fan in DC. You had options. And yeah, our pro teams, they weren't exactly championship contenders back then. Let's be honest, the Senators, the Redskins, we had our struggles. But you still had your heroes, your fan favorites. I mean, Frank Howard for the Senators, he was a giant, literally.
Oh, Big Hondo, what a slugger. And that brings us to our special segment today, Howard, because when we talk about DC fan favorites, about legends who transcended the win-loss record, there's one name that immediately springs to mind for anyone who grew up here in that era. And sadly, we just lost him. Christian Adolf Jurgensen, better known to all of us as Sonny Jurgensen, passed away on February 6, 2026 at 91 years old. I mean, what a career, what a life. He came to the Washington Redskins around 64 from the Philadelphia Eagles, and by the time he hung up his cleats, he was without a doubt recognized by the experts of the league as the purest passer in the history of the game. For me, Sonny was the best quarterback I had ever seen, and I'm not just saying that because I grew up a D.C. kid. Even with the big rivalry between Dallas and Washington, I didn't dislike Dallas, but my heart was always with the Redskins. What are your initial thoughts, Howard, when you hear the name Sonny Jurgensen?
Man, Sonny Jurgensen. Just hearing his name, it brings back so many memories. I remember just marveling at how genuinely good he was. I mean, Rod, he used to throw the tightest spirals consistently, more than anyone I've ever seen before or since. It was just a thing of beauty,
Yeah, that's what everyone says. Just a picture-perfect throw.
Exactly. And it wasn't just pretty, it was effective. He didn't get his receivers killed going over the middle for passes. I've heard his guys say his ball was easy to catch. They wouldn't have needed the gripper gloves that are so prevalent in the game today, where just about everybody uses them. His ball was just catchable.
That's a testament to his touch, really. It speaks volumes about how he understood the mechanics of passing and the needs of his receivers.
It really does. And look, overall, his team was often on the subpar side, especially early on in his career here. But you'd never go into a game overconfident against them with Jurgensen at the helm. He just had that ability to make something out of nothing, to keep you on your toes.
He truly was a game changer, even when the pieces around him weren't always top tier. I mean, he led the league in passing in 66, 67, and 69. That's incredible consistency in an era that was not designed for passing records.
It's more than incredible, Rod. And his reputation, that's what drew Vince Lombardi to Washington after he left Green Bay. Think about that for a second. Lombardi, the legendary Lombardi, comes here, and the lure, the absolute star that brought him, was Sonny Jurgensen.
That's huge. And there's that famous quote Lombardi made, right, about having Jurgensen in Green Bay.
Oh, absolutely. Lombardi said if he'd had Jurgensen in Green Bay, not only would they have won championships, but they probably wouldn't have lost a game. That's a direct quote, and it just shows the level of respect, the awe even, that Lombardi had for Sonny's talent.
And it wasn't just words. Lombardi paid him an astonishing indirect compliment. When Lombardi was developing a plan for the team, he turned over the offense to Jurgensen. That was pretty much unheard of for Lombardi, to entrust a player with that much control over his system.
It speaks volumes about Sonny's football IQ and his leadership. He was purely a passer first, that's what he was known for, but occasionally he would take off and run, unafraid to take on the defense. You'd never see him sliding to avoid contact. He ran with purpose.
No, absolutely not. He was tough. He'd lower his shoulder. He wasn't looking to avoid the hit. He was looking for the first down or maybe even more.
Right. And for a little flair, I remember he typically threw behind the back passes in warm-ups. I even saw him do it in a game or two, Rod. Just pure showmanship, but he made it look effortless.
Oh, I remember seeing clips of that. Just incredible. And it wasn't just the flash either. Fundamentally, Jurgensen just enlisted a straight drop back in the pocket for passing. He was a master in his ability to read defenses, to see what was coming and adjust. That's something that often gets overlooked in the highlight reels.
Completely. And his offensive line, let's be frank, it was essentially below average compared to the other good offenses in the league at the time. And because of this, Sonny also had a really quick release. He had to. He didn't have all day back there.
That's a crucial point. That quick release combined with his accuracy allowed him to thrive even when he wasn't perfectly protected. And what makes it even more astonishing is that Jurgensen was setting passing records with huge numbers in only a 14-game season. I mean, nowadays, with 17 games, those numbers would be astronomical.
Right. With no disrespect intended to Dan Marino, who was phenomenal, but if Sonny had the offensive line that Marino had in Miami, or the line that the Redskins had in the 1980s with the Hogs, there's no telling how many yards and touchdowns he would have thrown for. It would have been mind-boggling.
It really would have rewritten the record books entirely. But for me, one of the most poignant moments, his signature game really, was in his final year, after he'd had that Achilles injury that kept him out of the Super Bowl against the undefeated Miami Dolphins. He was allowed to start a game early to midway through that final season against those very same Dolphins, who by that time were defending Super Bowl champions and looking for a third straight.
Oh, that game was epic. I remember it so clearly.
He staged a final drive that was a thing of beauty, ending in him hitting Charlie Taylor at the goal line for a game-winning touchdown and a 20-17 victory for the Redskins. It was pure poetry. That 1974 game against Don Shula's Dolphins, it was like the ultimate what-if game. It was a build-up answering the question of what might have happened if Jurgensen had faced Miami in the Super Bowl. And you know what? That game lived up to every single expectation. It was incredible.
It absolutely did. A legendary performance to cap off an already legendary career.
And it makes you think about the subtleties of the game back then, things people might not consider at first, but were a huge part of enhancing the offense or making a quarterback's job infinitely harder. First, I remember when offensive holding was 15 yards instead of the 10 it is today. That was a much more severe penalty for the quarterback to rectify in keeping a drive alive. And because of that, the offensive line would be apprehensive to take liberties with blocking the defensive lineman, resulting in less time for the quarterback when trying to either locate a receiver or wait for him to get downfield.
Oh, for sure. 15 yards was a killer. You'd go from a manageable 2nd and short to 2nd and a mile. It changed everything.
Exactly. And then there was no illegal contact penalty on the defense. Defenders could practically maul the receivers on their routes, not to mention making it harder for the wide receivers to even get off the line of scrimmage. So the quarterback was often left with either no one to throw to or had to masterfully lead his receivers under duress, really having to thread the needle with passes.
That's so true. Receivers got beat up out there. There was no protecting them like there is now. Jurgensen had to be incredibly accurate to get the ball into those tight windows.
And let's not forget, the receivers didn't have the gripper gloves of today, right? And the games were typically played outside, often in bad weather. So a pass had to be delivered in such a precise manner with just the right amount of zip and touch. It wasn't like a sticky ball being thrown to a sticky glove.
Good point. Those conditions made catching the ball a whole different challenge. You needed that perfect spiral we talked about.
Then there was the 30-second clock instead of the 40 seconds we have now, which meant the quarterback had less time to call the play in the huddle and get everyone to the line of scrimmage without delaying the game. That added pressure every single snap.
Every second counted, especially in loud stadiums. That was a big factor.
And speaking of loud stadiums, there were no speakers or microphones in the helmets. So if a quarterback was in a loud opposing stadium, he'd often have to contend with his players not hearing the signals from the quarterback under center. The defense would have an advantage in getting off the ball because they'd know the snap count better than the offense sometimes. It was a whole different beast.
All those factors really put into perspective just how exceptional Jurgensen was. He was operating under conditions that today's quarterbacks would find incredibly challenging, if not impossible.
Absolutely. My memory's a little hazy after that regular season game against Miami, but I do remember a game really late in the season in which Jurgensen started against the Bears. I'm guessing that George Allen was saving Billy Kilmer for the playoffs, and he started Sonny, who put up 21 points in the first half. Then the young Joe Theismann played the second half and also put up 21, so it was a 42-0 win. I sort of remember at that time it being pretty obvious that Theismann would be the future of the team.
Yeah, that game felt like a passing of the torch in a way. Sonny showing he still had it, but the future was clearly on the horizon.
But you know, one thing I still can't reckon with to this day is that Jurgensen didn't start the playoff game against the Rams that year. It just seems to me that there was a matter of moral integrity that should have taken precedence. With Jurgensen performing well in the final game of the season against Chicago, and after leading the team to victory earlier in the season against Miami, and given all the records he amassed throughout his career, and an injury keeping him out of the Super Bowl, he should have at least been called upon to start that playoff game against the Rams.
It was a tough call for Allen, I guess. But I agree, it felt like Sonny deserved that shot.
But it ended up that Kilmer started, wasn't effective that day, and then with the Redskins trailing with about 12 minutes left in the game, George Allen abruptly decided to bring in Jurgensen. No time to warm up, and the team starting a drive inside the 20. Sonny took them to midfield, and then on a third down, Merlin Olsen, the Hall of Fame lineman for the Rams, got to him, causing his pass to go awry, and linebacker Isaiah Robertson intercepted it and went 60 yards for a pick six. The game ended at 19-10, and the Rams advanced.
I remember that play. Just heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely heartbreaking. But I can't help but think that if Sonny had been allowed to start the game, then get acclimated to the Rams' defense, it might have been a different story. It just seemed like a slap in the face to deprive him of his only chance to start a playoff game after accomplishing so much in the league and then running to him in the fourth quarter to bail them out, and there was no guarantee that he'd have started the game the following week anyway. The irony of it all is that George Allen ended up losing to the team that he left for the Redskins.
That's a point that always stuck with me too, Rod. It just felt like a missed opportunity to honor a truly great player.
But you know, true to form, Jurgensen was a class act about that whole situation. He and Kilmer were always friends, on and off the field. You never heard a bad word from Sonny about it. He retired shortly after that game, probably figuring that at age 40 it was time to pack it in. What a way to go out, though, still showing flashes of that brilliance even in a disappointing loss.
He really was, Rod. A true professional, a true legend. And his passing is definitely a moment for us all to reflect on the impact he had, not just on the game, but on every fan who watched him play. He made Sunday afternoons in D.C. special, even when the team wasn't winning championships.
He absolutely did. He brought a kind of magic to the field that few others ever have. Sonny Jurgensen, truly one of a kind. Howard, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your memories today. It's been a truly special tribute.
My pleasure, Rod. Always good to talk about the good old days and the legends that made them what they were.
And thank you everyone for tuning in to DC Sports Rewind. We'll catch you next time for more dives into the rich history of our city's sports.
From the year 1956 in the Redmond Spokesman. Bowling pins ignite in Redmond. Redmond volunteer firemen were called to Premier Bowl at 11:55 Wednesday night when newly lacquered bowling pins burst into flame while being sanded. The blaze was confined to the sawdust in a storage shed in back of the bowling alley and was extinguished in about 5 minutes. from the year 1988 in the St. Joseph Gazette. Duckpin bowling catching on in Wisconsin, Indiana. Bowling with stubby pins and a grapefruit-sized ball has been an East Coast sport for decades, but in recent years, the squatty duckpins have surfaced as far west as Wisconsin and Indiana. It was a regional game initially, but now with national TV exposure, maybe it's going to open up, said Bill Orchard, current president of the National Duckpin Bowling Congress. Even a hint of new activity is encouraging to the 150,000 duckpin bowlers who have lived in the shadow of the more popular 10-pin game, played with taller pins and a heavier ball. About 120 duckpin alleys dot the eastern seaboard from New Hampshire and Vermont to North Carolina, but the sport never made its way west. In the past year, however, duckpin has been featured on cable television nationwide, and duckpinners hope the sport will catch on across the country. Bob Moore of College Park, president of Duckpin Bowling Proprietors of America, said duckpin lanes belonging to members of the association plunged 36% after 1980. He said many centers lost their leases because of high land values. But, Orchard noted, since the cable TV programs, there's a lane in Indianapolis that has opened up with great results, and also one near Milwaukee. 10-pin advocates acknowledge growing interest in duckpin, but they doubt it will ever rival 10-pin. People just favor the bigger pins and the bigger balls, said Mark Miller, a spokesman for the American Bowling Congress in Greendale, Wisconsin. The Congress estimates 67 million people bowl 10 pins at least once a year, and 7.4 million bowl in weekly leagues. The majority of duckpin bowlers live in and around the nation's capital. They call this duckpin country, said Paul Wolf, 55, who handles maintenance at Southside Bowl. You're either cut out to be a 10-pin bowler, or you're cut out to be a duckpin bowler. For 10-pin players, bowling means sticking 2 fingers and a thumb in the holes of an 8 to 16-pound ball and letting it rip down a shiny alley. Duckpin balls do not have holes and weigh only 3 or 4 pounds. The pins are smaller too, standing 9 inches tall compared with the 15-inch 10-pins. I don't believe I could lift one of those 10-pin balls, said James Bud Mason, 73. We just got into duckpin. Oh, we love this old sport. From the year 1986 in the Daily News. Ozio claims light classic. Top-seeded David Ozio rolls 2 strikes in the 10th frame to win the pressure-filled title match in the $150,000 Light Beer Classic Saturday at Don Carter Kendall Lanes. Ozio beat Darrell Bauer 207-195 to claim the 3rd Professional Bowlers Association title of his career. The victory earned Ozio $27,000 and gave him the first leg of the $1 million Light Slam. Should Ozio of Vidor, Texas, win the Light Beer Championship in Milwaukee in 3 weeks and the Light Beer Open in Cleveland in March, he will earn a $1 million bonus from the Miller Brewing Company. If he wins one of the 2 remaining light events, Ozio will claim a $50,000 bonus. Mark Baker, the 1984 champion here, opened the nationally televised finals by stopping Walter Ray Williams Jr. of Stockton, California, 205-170, and then eliminated Venezuelan Emleto Monicelli, 257-227. Bauer of Middletown, Pennsylvania, stopped the charging Baker, 205-176, to advance to the championship match against Ozio. In the championship game, Bauer took the early lead, but failed to convert the 2-4-5 spare in the 5th frame. Ozio failed to double in the game until the 10th frame, when he shut out Bauer with his 2 strikes. Ozio struck only 5 times in the finale and left 6 single pins. I knew exactly where I wanted to throw the ball, it just wasn't carrying, meaning all 10 pins for a strike. He said, my arm swing direction was good, and all I wanted to do was get the ball to the right of the first arrow. The 31-year-old Ozio isn't thinking about the $1 million bonus yet. It would be an absolute miracle to win the 3 light beer tournaments, Ozio said. Winning 2 is possible, but I could get another good shot and win. But 3? Talk to me after I've won 2. Bauer, who was 11-0 in match play during the championship round going into the title match, earned $14,000 for second, Baker $8,500, Monicelli $7,000, and Williams $6,000. From the year 1988 in the Fremont Tribune. Bowling Shirts Memorialized by Bob Green. We all harbor the hope for some kind of immortality. With as much humility as possible, it is my pleasure to announce that I have achieved it. In the National Bowling Hall of Fame and Museum, located in St. Louis, directly across from Busch Stadium, the bowling shirts of the Greenettes are now on permanent display. We're proud to have the Greenettes shirts as a part of our museum, said Bruce Pluckhahn, the Hall of Fame's curator. We think they are beautiful shirts. For those of you who don't know, and there shouldn't be too many of you, because I have been persistent to a fault in reminding you of this, the Greenettes are a women's bowling team that I have been sponsoring for the past 4 years. The Greenettes bowl in the Thursday Night Ladies League at Montclair Lanes on the northwest side of Chicago. Sponsoring a bowling team is a great bargain. For the $25 it costs to pay league fees, you can feel like George Steinbrenner. If you're really generous, for another $100 or so you can buy the girls, yes, they are adults, but in a bowling context, the Greenettes prefer to be referred to as girls, new bowling shirts every year. The Greenettes, in a burst of inspiration, sent their shirts from the first 3 seasons to the National Bowling Hall of Fame and Museum. Our bowling shirt display is the pièce de résistance of the museum, explained curator Pluckhahn. We display 50 shirts at a time on a rotating basis. The shirts are from all over the world. They are shown on plastic shoulder display things attached to poles that run from the floor to the ceiling. The shirt display is circular. It is really quite artistic and gorgeous. The Greenettes sent the 3 sets of shirts to provide variety. They don't want repeat visitors to the museum to see the same Greenettes shirts time after time. The first year, the shirts were black cotton, flash dance style, off-the-shoulder numbers. The second year they were red sweatshirts with arms that zipped off, so that the shirts could be worn in either summer or winter. The third year they were green men's-style shirts. We bought them because they were on sale, said Greenette Angela Pindell Sokolowski. You didn't give us enough money for good shirts. In addition to Sokolowski, the Greenettes are Helen Pindell, Joanne Pindell, Laurie Duncan, and Jackie Bruno. I'm ecstatic, said Joanne Pindell, speaking for the team. The roster has varied over the years, but the one constant has been the 3 Pindell sisters. At the National Bowling Hall of Fame and Museum, curator Pluckhahn points with pride to the fact that the structure covers 50,000 square feet over 3 floors. We're the same size as the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Pluckhahn said. If this surprises some people, it shouldn't. Only a relative handful of men ever play football, but there are an estimated 8.5 million Americans who bowl in sanctioned leagues and another 60 million to 70 million who bowl at least occasionally for recreation. The bowling shirt display is the highlight of our museum, Pluckhahn said, but we think the whole thing is great. We have 4 modern lanes with automatic pin setters and 4 old-fashioned lanes on which we use pin buoys. Visitors can use any of the 8 lanes. Every hour on the hour, we show a movie that traces the roots of bowling and goes right up to the modern era, with Chris Schinkel and everything. 10-Pin Alley is a curving walkway that leads up to the second level. It's like taking a walk through bowling history. We have a vast selection of balls used by famous bowlers. I asked if the balls were autographed. Pluckhahn paused for a second. Well, no, he said slowly. You don't autograph a bowling ball very easily. but each bowling ball is identified, and visitors to the museum are free to put their fingers in a ball and feel the guy's grip. Pluck-On said he favors vintage bowling shirts to today's models. These days you can't tell most bowling shirts from knit golf shirts, he said. The shirts used to be more colorful. They were made of silk, and then they moved on to rayon and polyester. Years ago, men wore long-sleeved bowling shirts, and they wore ties while they bowled. But I must tell you, the Greenettes shirts are outstanding. Pluck-On asked me to relay an invitation. We would like to receive as many bowling shirts as possible for eventual inclusion in our display, he said. So if any of your readers who are bowlers would like to send their shirts, we'll be happy to have them. The address is National Bowling Hall of Fame and Museum, 111 Stadium Plaza, St. Louis, Missouri, 63102. I informed Angela Pendell Sokolowski that the Greenettes shirts were now officially on display in the Hall of Fame. That's all very nice, she said, but the point is, you haven't given us a check to buy shirts for this year, and our old shirts are all down in St. Louis. World's oldest league bowler from Green Bay celebrates 102nd birthday. The world's oldest league bowler, Walter Rossow of Green Bay, Wisconsin, celebrated his 102nd birthday by shooting games of 98, 93, and 75, a bit lower than his average of 103. The first ball he ever threw was made of wood. Today he rolls a green ball with a Green Bay Packer emblem. To put his age in perspective, Rossow is a year older than the ABC. From the record from the year 1997. Weber snaps out of long slump. Pete Weber ended a 3-year drought by defeating Brian Himmler 208-191 Saturday in the title match of the Professional Bowlers Association's Tucson Open. It was Weber's 22nd career title, but his first since the Japan Cup at Tokyo on October 10, 1993. This title means everything to me, said Weber, who earned $16,000. It tells me I'm not a loser anymore. I can win and will win. Himmler, who came from the 5th seed to bowl Weber in the final match, gave the St. Anne, Missouri resident all he could handle. Weber struck on his last 4 balls, forcing Himmler to double and get a count of 6 on the 10th frame to win. Himmler hit the pocket solidly and left the 7-pin, but perhaps the toughest shot for Himmler came in the 8th frame when he left a 2-4-8-10 split. I got a hair fast in the 8th, he said. I felt if it was on the other lane it would have gotten back, but it wasn't and it didn't. Himmler from Cincinnati takes home $8,500. The key shot for Weber came on the first ball in the 10th frame. He hadn't struck on that lane since the 2nd frame. Himmler, still seeking his first title, got to the final by beating Steve Hoskins 204-201, Mike Albee 245-235, and Ryan Schaefer 227-221. Here's another hint from Dr. X's bowling clinic. From the Daily News from the year 1961. Bowling tip. Get a good grip on the ball. By Gallagher. I hear a lot of discussion about which grip is the best. Open finger for comfort, closed finger for more lift on the ball. A few even vote for curling the little finger under to lessen strain. Well, suit yourself. It doesn't matter. But the span between the thumb and fingers does. Here's a simple way to measure the exact amount of span you need to get the best results. While holding the ball, insert a pencil between it and the bridge of your palm. You shouldn't have to force the pencil, but it shouldn't roll around either. Okay? Then you're ready to bowl, with less strain on your hand and less loss of control. From the Atlanta Constitution from the year 2000. Bowling ball assault in Duluth. A man was arrested Saturday after throwing a bowling ball toward a bowling alley worker. Gwinnett police say Gregory Lewis Mayo, 20, of Duluth, threw a ball down an alley while a worker was setting up pins at Brunswick-Gwinnett Lanes on US 29 in Lilburn. The ball almost hit the worker, police said. Mayo and his party were rowdy and were told several times to leave, according to a report. Officer L.N. Gibson, who was working off-duty as a security guard around midnight at the bowling alley, said he asked Mayo 3 times to leave. Mayo responded by cursing, Gibson reported. From the Whitby News Times from the year 1991. Island sportsman hosting bowling pin shoot, February 23rd. Members and non-members are invited to attend the North Whitby Sportsmen's Association's bowling pin shoot on February 24th. The shoot is set to begin at 12:30 p.m. and is being held at the association's shooting range off of Goldie Road near Oak Harbor. Sign-up for the shoot starts at noon and will continue until the last shooter is called to the firing line. Competitors must be 16 or older. Cost is $5 per person per category.
Well, I guess we've come to the end and we'll be wrapping it up for today. Thanks for stopping by and tuning in. As usual, if you haven't already done so and would like to be notified when future videos become available and are published, feel free to hit the subscribe button in the lower right corner of the videos or YouTube video screen. Have a great week, and I look forward to seeing everyone on the upcoming Thursday or Friday. Take care.